The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Is this around the time that you started going in and out of jail?
Yeah, around the same time. I went to jail for 2 bullshit charges, 2 aggravated robbery charges that got downgraded to theft, and assault. But it was just bullshit. Once you start going in there, you go into a cycle. And then I started doing like a month here, 2 months there, another month here, 2 months there. And then I was in jail in 2016 and I had an incident with a prison officer where I popped his collarbone and fractured his eye socket because of something that happened in a unit. I ended up getting charged for that, did 3 months for a punishment run and getting 9 months for aggravated assault with a civil servant because that's what they're classed as. And then I done my sentence for that, 2016 to 2017. I got out in 2017 and I stayed out to 2019 and then went to jail with enough charges to do at least over 10 years and beat all those charges. And the only charge I went down was for one of them. And that's aggravated possession of a prescribed firearm. I ended up doing 2 years and 8 months on the top. That's just for, and I wanted to get my early guilty plea in early, but with the lawyer shit, they're fuckheads, and I ended up with only like 5 or 10% discount. So like I lost like 4 months of my sentence or something. I didn't even get parole. I got approved parole. They wanted me to do the violence prevention program. I did 4 months of it, and then I found out I wasn't eligible for an extended supervision order. I said, jam your course, I'm not doing this. And then I went and seen parole 2 weeks later. They granted me parole. I couldn't get an address, and I got an address 2 days before I got out of jail. Because I was going to get out, and I was going to have to go stay at a homeless shelter. Basically, there's nowhere I could go, and then they put me in where I'm at now.
If you just backtrack for a sec to when you first started going in and out, right? So that 2014, 2015 period.
Yeah, it was fucked up. Like, I had nowhere to go. I got out on Home D and I went and stayed at my mate Steve's house. And he had like a studio at the back and I stayed there for a while. But like, my issue has always been accommodation. Because like, it's hard to get a house. Like, my whole family, they like work. They've all got houses and shit. I don't. And I've always struggled to find somewhere to go. Like, because I was in for jail for over 2 years, you're not like eligible for IHEP housing. And like, if you do under 2 years, you can get a house. You think if you do over 2 years, your life has been warped to a point that like you need housing. But I ended up having to move into a house where there's like 3 bedrooms that are offline and one doesn't have a bedroom fucking window. It's like a third world country, but like I've done prison, so it's not a problem. Like at the end of the day, I can clean up my own space and I can live in my own space, but you like when you get out of jail, you don't have many options. Like you get put where you get put, and then any job you try and go for, they ask what you've been doing the last couple of years. What am I going? Like I was in jail for a modified loaded firearm. It was only a 22, but it was still loaded and it was modified so you could like keep it hidden and shit. Like
now, before we get to that bit, because I want to go through, you know, we were speaking to your Coe.
Yeah.
And you know, he made it clear that we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And we're going to, but just before we do, you mentioned as you were coming in and out, then I think you said maybe around 2016, there was an incident where you assaulted a guard or something?
Yeah, prison guard. I was in prison. I got basically set up by someone. I was in their house. I had steroids. I went to go sell someone some gear. And I went to the car. Cop car rolls up. Goes, hey, Tyrell Granger. Throws a bag of gear into the car. Goes, hey. So basically they got me out of the car. They found a machete that was this long. And they found a bunch of steroids on me. I got bail, but then the next day when I went to go get my car, I drove home and I went to a spot because I was still smoking gear. So I went to go rage some gear before I went home because I don't want my mum to know I'm smoking gear. I'm sitting there smoking gear and the cops fucking roll up on me. My car with my laptop with like 4 of my hard drives, my whole music career on it, sitting in the boot in an unlocked car on the side road at Athelston. I'm fucking peaking. I went to jail. And then while I was in jail, this is when they cut out the cigarettes in prison. And I was just pacing back and forth in the morning saying, if these screws to my celly, if they fuck with us today, I'm not copping it. Because they treat us like shit. It's not like now when Serco run it. Like, they're ex-bus drivers and shit. Like, prison screws are the most putrid cunts on the planet. They think that they're better than everyone. They've walked into this unit and basically tried to say, you don't get the toaster. Because cunts were lighting smokes off the toaster. But they said if you keep it clean, you're allowed to keep it. So people kicked off and they pushed someone into their cell. They moved all the big heads out of the unit. This is like the induction unit in the remand centre. And then they kicked everyone out of the unit except for like wobblies and idiots. And then they tried to bash 2 people in the blind spot because they pushed a young fella into the cell and they smashed him in the back of the head. And 2 fellas kicked up about it and said, that's bullshit. And if you've been to the remand centre, there's a fishbowl and then like you've got the unit and the promenade and the levels. And where the you get the hot water for your coffee and shit, there's a blind spot. And they like launched one fella up against the perspex and then another fella, they folded him. So I'm standing, I've seen the footage because I got my lawyer to show me. And I had a blackout because I've got mental problems like drug psychosis and BPD and shit. So I started looping out and pacing back and forth like a lunatic. Like walking back and forth and then I just jump in and I'll push one of the screws. And he comes to get at me again. I push him again. He folds over, and I jumped on top of him, and I hit him like 4 or 5 times. And then they bashed me for like 45 minutes. They zip tied me and handcuffed me and used me as a battering ram. Smashed me into the fucking the elevator, just like, because I'm like, what is this all it is, you know? And then they just started caving right into me. You know what I mean? I couldn't breathe. You know how you get cunts like that cunt over in America that's like, I can't breathe. I had some like 5 or 6 screws on top of me, folding me like a pretzel, and I'm like trying to breathe, like it's crazy, bro. And in the remand centre, they take you to the punishment. That's like 4 or 5 floors up, like even more than that. And you're in the like thing, like they strip you naked, and you're standing there, and there's like 10 of them, and they're like, yeah, oh, what? You think you're better than us? And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, I've got mental psychosis. I don't even remember what happened. I remember just pushing the screw and him folding over and then hitting him a few times. And he would have got a payout off of me too because I had the other prison guards go, if you're going to attack someone next time, get me. I said, nah, it's not happening. I'm not stupid enough to give another one of you a payout. You know what I mean? Like,
So what did you end up, what ended up?
I got charged with aggravated assault of a civil servant. I got treated different. So when they moved me around in the jail, they had one of the screws showed me. It's a piece of paper and it says physically violent, unpredictable, and keep eyes on at all times. Like they had me on handcuff regime when they moved me around the remand centre, just because that's where the incident was. Like when I was up in Moby last, I went to get a job at Clean Industries. They like put pegs together and shit. I wanted a simple job, and they said, nah, like you've got problems with us. You're not getting a job here. I had a job in the laundry at Port Augusta, and they're like, you're lucky with your history to have this job. I'm like, what do you mean, man? Like, I was like coming down off drugs. I was in Unit 1. I was meant to get home to bail. And where I was staying, the person told corrections, oh, we're moving in like a couple of months. So they said he can't stay there. So I had to stay in for another 2 weeks. And if I wasn't in at that stage, like I wouldn't have done the jail that I've done. It's crazy. Like I was in just for a couple steroids charges, a machete, and a bunch of weapons charges because they never caught me for fuck all. And then like, I got done for all of that, and then I was in there for that, and I was like, I could have got bail. I asked my mum and dad, can I do home day at yours? They said, no way. I said, what do you mean? Like, you're getting done for steroids and what? But I've like shattered my elbow. That's what they use to fix people is steroids. So like, I wanted to get on the steroids to fix my arm, but then like, everyone kind of turned on me, and like, I had a few brothers out that like checked cunts and made sure that like where I needed to go was where I got to go. But like, I wouldn't have been in there and attacked the screw. I spent 3 months in punishment. So it's 28 days in Unit 7. This is like isolated in one cell. You have no TV, nothing for 28 days. I did 3 weeks in Unit 8, which is like you have a TV and a cellmate, but you go to the yard fuck all and it's like its own yard. And I did 3 weeks in the watch house. And I seen my brother like rock up in the watch house. I went to go to the remand centre to get reintegrated, where they probably would have attacked me again. And then I got bail that day, and I got out. And like, I seen the ones that attacked me when I was getting out. I was like, what cunts, you know? And they just looked at me like, how the fuck are you still like moving?
So when you got out at that point, right? If that all happened like around 2016, When you got out at that point, what was that, like 2017?
Yeah, I got out 2017 in June from Cadell. So I did most of my sentence at Mobilong. Like, when I first rocked up to Mobilong, rest in peace with my brother Matty Smith, but I was settled up with Matty Smith. Anyone who knows the streets of No Smither, I was settled up with him. This is when I'd done my first proper actual like little sentence, and like I'd seen what was going on, and like I stayed up at Mobilong, and then I went to Cadell. And Mobilong's medium security, Cadell's low security. Last time I was in jail, I was a prescribed applicant, and I was high security too. So you can't even go to like medium security for a while. I had to do a year and a half at Yatala and then Port Augusta, and then I went to Mobilong. Normally I'd go to Mobilong every time. There's grass there and a pool, bro. But whereas you go to fucking Yatala, you're in a rat trap. Like, they've got a little, like, each wing has like 2 things that come off of it like that, and there's like 12 cells, and you're in a literal fucking like rat like cage. It's crazy. And you like talk to people from one side of the cage to the other. Like, you could be in the same wing as someone and you don't even see him properly. It's crazy. And you go to Port Augusta, they've got a fucking wing like in inner walls. It's called Blue Bush. Blue Bush 3 and Blue Bush 4. Blue Bush 4 has 2 phones. Blue Bush 3 has 1 phone, and they let one side out at one time and one side out at the other time. The phone line is already booked before anyone even gets out there. Like, people get bashed every day in jail over the phone line. Like, it's the most violent thing you can do is try and make a phone call, because everyone wants to talk to their family every day. Like, I've had arguments and attacked people over the phone all the time. So you can't, because you got to book into the phone. Sometimes the phone's already booked for the whole 3 hours that you're out, and you're talking to people and you're having to like bribe them to get their spot on the phone. Like, you can force your way onto the phone, but at the same time, like, everyone's trying to be a gentleman to everyone. So sometimes you got to cop it. It's like that song by Immortal Technique where he talks about parole. He's like, I'm on parole, never fighting over the phone again. Like, no, we're not gonna out for the phone again, you know, that shit. Like, that happens in jail. I've seen people get booted in the back of the head at the medication line for like trying to push someone in the way. They get like knocked out just because of the medication line, like the phone line, bro.
So then if your first time in was around 2014-15, and then we've gotten up to the point where you got out in June, July of 2017.
Yeah. In
that 2-3 year period, how much of your time was spent in jail around abouts out of that 3 years or 2-3 years?
I reckon about a year and a half.
So like 50%, yeah, in and out, like 50%?
In and out, just like, there was times where I was out for a fair bit, and then I'd just go back in for a couple months. And it was like a joke until I started doing like maximum security. I'm like, oh, this is actually hectic. I'm so bored.
The lesson.
927. Oh, yeah.